Nobody has ever reached the end of Cocklebiddy Cave. Not because nobody's tried. Divers have been pushing into its flooded passages since 1961, using better equipment every decade, breaking world records for how far a human being has ever swum underground. And every single expedition has stopped for the same reason. Not because the cave ended, because the diver's air, equipment or body gave out first. Hundreds of kilometres away, in a separate but connected story of Australian cave diving, 13 people never made it out of the water at all. A landscape built to trap anyone who goes looking. The Nullarbor Plain sits on the largest single area of limestone bedrock anywhere on Earth. From the surface, driving the Eyre Highway, it looks like nothing, flat, treeless country stretching to the horizon in every direction. Underneath it is an entirely different story. Millions of years of slightly acidic groundwater dissolving the limestone from below have produced a network of flooded cave systems, subterranean lakes, and passages that extend deeper into the rock than any team of divers has yet managed to follow to their end. Cocklebiddy Cave is the most famous of these systems. Its entrance is a collapsed doline, a sinkhole formed when part of the cave roof caved in, exposing a chamber system below that opens into an entrance room more than 300 metres long. From there, the cave descends into water, crystal clear water, 180 metres of open lake, before the passage narrows into a flooded tunnel that continues for more than 6 kilometres underground. Divers who've been inside have described the water as so clear it feels like floating in air rather than swimming. The silence beyond the entrance chamber closed to absolute. The cave has been closed to public access since the early 2010s due to unstable rock at the entrance. You can walk down into the doline and look at the threshold. You cannot go past a barrier erected a short distance inside. What's past that barrier is something almost nobody on Earth will ever personally see. 60 years of expeditions that all end the same way. The first dive into Cocklebiddy was completed in 1961 by members of the Western Australia Speleological Group, who penetrated 200 metres before their equipment limitations forced them back. Over the following 2 decades, successive expeditions pushed further in, each one benefiting from slightly better technology than the last. The cave passed through multiple chambers separated by flooded sections, including a dry, air-filled space explorers named Toad Hall, 250 metres long and 10 metres high, sitting kilometres into the system where no natural light has ever reached and no sound from the surface can penetrate. In August 1983, a French team set a world record, completing the longest underwater cave penetration ever attempted at the time, pushing more than 6 kilometres from the entrance. 2 months later, an Australian team broke that same record. A South Australian diver extended it again in 1995. In 2008, Craig Challen and Richard Harris, divers who would later become household names in Australia for their roles in the 2018 Thai cave rescue, used rebreather technology to map and film sections of the cave that had never been documented before. At the end of every single one of these record-setting dives, the passage kept going. It has always kept going. Nobody has yet reached the back of Cocklebiddy Cave. Every expedition in over 60 years has stopped, not because the cave came to an end, but because the diver's equipment, air supply, or physical limits ran out first. The danger that isn't hypothetical. It would be one thing if Cocklebiddy's difficulty were purely theoretical, a cave that's simply very long and very deep. It isn't. Cave diving in this specific style of flooded limestone system carries a documented, well-established fatality risk, one that Australia's own cave diving history has confirmed repeatedly. In incidents largely unrelated to Cocklebiddy itself, but shaped by exactly the same conditions: sediment-clouded water, narrow passages, and total darkness far from any surface exit. Between 1969 and 1983, 13 divers died in freshwater cave diving accidents in Australia, across 6 separate incidents concentrated in the Mount Gambier region of South Australia, a limestone karst area with its own network of flooded sinkholes and cave systems, geologically related to the broader story of how water moves through this kind of rock across southern Australia. The most significant of these was the 1973 Mount Gambier cave diving accident at a site known as the Shaft. 4 divers went in to explore beyond the cave's already mapped sections. They went further than their training or equipment could safely support, entered without a properly maintained guideline back to the entrance, became disoriented in the dark, and drowned after their air supply ran out before they could find their way back to the surface. Their bodies were recovered over the following year, one at a time, in an operation that shaped Australian cave diving safety practice for the next 50 years. That tragedy led directly to the formation of the Cave Divers Association of Australia in 1973, which introduced the mandatory guidelines, buddy systems, and formal training standards that now govern every legal cave dive conducted in the country. It's a direct causal line: 13 deaths, 6 incidents, and a national governing body created specifically because Australia's flooded cave systems had proven repeatedly that experience and enthusiasm alone weren't enough to guarantee anyone made it back out. The danger hasn't stayed in the past either. In November 2025, a 65-year-old experienced diver named Gary Gibson died at Tank Cave near Mount Gambier, with his body recovered by police divers, including Richard Harris, the same diver whose name appears earlier in Cocklebiddy's own exploration history, and who would go on to become globally known for his role in the Tem Luang cave rescue in Thailand. Why the deaths and the discoveries are the same story. It's worth being precise about the geography here. Cocklebiddy Cave and the Mount Gambier fatalities occurred in different cave systems, hundreds of kilometres apart, one on the Nullarbor near the Western Australia and South Australia border, the other in South Australia's southeast. They are not the same physical cave. What connects them is something more fundamental: the same underlying limestone karst geology, the same category of extreme risk, and in Richard Harris's case, literally the same individuals moving between mapping the frontier of one system and recovering bodies from the other. This is what makes the phrase "killed every team sent to map it" more than just a dramatic framing device. Every record-setting expedition into Cocklebiddy has been undertaken by divers operating in the exact same conditions, the same total darkness, the same narrow flooded passages, the same total dependence on air supply, and a guideline back to safety that killed 13 people in a genuinely comparable Australian cave system a few decades earlier. The divers who've pushed Cocklebiddy's record further in 1983, in 1995, in 2008, weren't operating in some separate, safer category of cave exploration. They were doing the same activity in the same kind of environment that Australia's own cave diving history has already proven can and does kill experienced, well-trained people who make even a single serious mistake. What's actually down there? The cave system beneath the Nullarbor wasn't always flooded. During periods when global sea levels were significantly lower, these passages were dry, and the limestone cast of the Nullarbor would have contained accessible caves, underground freshwater sources, and genuine shelter from the brutal conditions of the plain above. The Muning people, traditional custodians of this country, maintain a documented ceremonial connection to a waterhole near the modern Nullarbor settlement, and their oral tradition reflects deep knowledge of the subterranean water sources that made survival possible in one of the driest environments on Earth. In the dry sections of Nullarbor cave systems, archaeologists have found evidence of ancient Aboriginal habitation, stone tools, and animal bones deposited in chambers that were accessible on foot before rising groundwater and changing sea levels sealed them off entirely. The people who left those objects lived in a landscape that looked nothing like the Nullarbor looks today, in caves that were open, in passages that were dry. What now requires specialist cave diving equipment, years of technical training, and a documented history of fatal incidents to access was, tens of thousands of years ago, simply underground country that people knew, used and understood without any of it being remarkable at all. That knowledge, and the culture that carried it, was disrupted by the same colonial processes that reached every part of Australia. The specific ceremonial and practical understanding connected to these cave systems was not systematically documented before significant parts of it were lost, meaning much of what these caves meant to the people who first lived alongside them may be permanently unrecoverable, in a way no amount of modern cave diving technology can retrieve. What remains unknown? The Nullarbor cast contains thousands of individual cave systems. A small number have been explored by divers. The overwhelming majority have not been entered at all, either because they remain flooded at the surface, because their entrances haven't yet been found, or because the sheer scale of the plain has made any kind of systematic survey an undertaking nobody has ever fully resourced. What exists in the unexplored sections of the cave system beneath one of the most remote, least visited stretches of country in Australia is a question that nobody currently has the ability to answer. The cave is closed. The entrances are unmarked. The water is 6 kilometres of flooded passage, so clear it looks like air. And every serious attempt to find out what's past the furthest point anyone has ever reached has ended the same way it did in 1961, in 1983, in 1995, and in 2008. Not with an answer, but with a diver forced to turn back, air running low, in a system that has already proven, in a related cave a few hundred kilometres away, exactly what happens to people who push past the point their equipment and training can actually support. Somewhere past the last confirmed metre of Cocklebiddy Cave, sitting in absolute darkness at the end of 6 kilometres of tunnel beneath the Nullarbor, whatever's actually down there is exactly where it's always been. Nobody has come back to say otherwise.